Turn the lights back on. Wow. Retro electro tech. When real audio ruled the world.
Greetings once again, all you loud and proud vintage audio tomcats and pretty kitties. Those of you with your sweaty little fingers clutching that volume pot, eager to drive it into the 11 zone. You know who you are. Grüße an alle Vintage Audio Enthusiasten, las es uns lauter machen. Vintage Audio Akoka no Minya-san, konnichiwa, onyo o agemashio. Saludos a todos los entusiastas del audio vintage. Subamos el volumen.
Ooh.
Whew. So let's get on with it. Here we have the last of the Mohicans as far as the Sansui 771s are concerned. I had several of these receivers come in almost back-to-back-ish. And before packaging this one up and shipping it back to its human, I've been putting it through its paces as the shop stereo, and it's been performing quite well. And anyway, this video is going to cover the meat of what's been done, mostly as info for the customer, but as always, you are all welcome to ride along. Okay, and here we are looking at the top side, and I just wanted to point out to the customer that as we discussed and agreed upon, I went ahead and recapped the power supply section, power board, driver board, and as I've mentioned before, and I will mention again, that when I'm working within a limited budget, I want to concentrate the customer's money where the majority of the wear and tear, electrically speaking, takes place. And of course, that's the power supply. I recap the power board, driver board, and around the backside too, there's a little EQ board that I recapped as well. And I had to go through and spend a lot of time evaluating, inspecting, whatever the case, solder joints and connectivity, because there were some problems that I found related to bad solder joints, and that's very common with this era of equipment. And of course these were inspected, but things slipped through the cracks, and not only that, but just over time, connections will work their way loose and this and that. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that is. Sometimes it's temperature differences, extremes of temperature, expansion and contraction on circuit boards, and how a piece of equipment was stored, how it was used, was it jostled around here and there, whatever the case. There's all kinds of reasons, and I'm not going to get into that. But the point is that that's why I always go through this equipment with a, with plenty of light and a magnifier, like what you see, up there, that, magnified light there. The point is that it's wise to do that, because a lot of problems within these receivers are related to connection issues, cold solder joints, whatever the case. So there you go, and I had to do a lot of that in here, so that's where a lot of my time was spent as well. And another thing I want to say is that sometimes, people might chime in and say, oh, well, I would have did this, I would have did that. But again, this is not my equipment, and I have to work within different budget constraints, and sometimes, I'm given the green light to go all the way and do whatever it takes, but that's not always the case. So I didn't recap the tuner board here, but I did go through and perform a very meticulous inspection, looking for obvious indicators of problems, like I always do. I did touch up solder joints on the back of the board, and I performed some spot testing in circuit. Went through and kind of hit the caps real quick, electrolytics. I was checking various transistor junctions, and I did that throughout as well, especially the transistor junctions and diodes, and just kind of going through and doing what I could do within the time frame that I had to work on this unit in. And of course I had to work on this in stages because of my workload, but it's done. It's been here in the shop while I've been performing some performance testing on it. So, in a perfect world where everybody would, be able to put the budget into a full restoration top to bottom, that would be great and everything, although I probably wouldn't have the time to do that at the rate things are going nowadays. But You know, in the real world though, that's why I try to do what I can do to give the customer the best bang for their buck in terms of at least going through and performing needed inspections and concentrate again the customer's money on areas that are more prone to failure because of the electrical wear and tear on them and so forth and so on. And by the way, as far as component selection is concerned on this, here, as far as the main filter caps, reservoir caps are concerned, I used Kemet long life 105 degree caps in these positions, and I used, of course, throughout, especially in the audio path, Nishikon KL low noise series caps and Elna Silmic 2, which are all caps that are held in high regard. Yes, opinions are going to vary, and that's why I never get into that stuff, at least not on the internet as far as the internet discussions are concerned, because really it's all subjective in the end. And the one thing, though, that I will touch on is that, yes, it is always wise to know what you're putting in a particular area of a circuit in terms of audio or sonic characteristics, and whether or not you know, a particular choice is going to color the sound in a negative manner, potentially. But again, there's so much subjectiveness to that you know, that can go on and on and on. But I do try my best, especially based on what's available at the time in a particular value or whatever the case that matches up in terms of specifications and parameters that I'm looking for. I always try to get the best that I can, but with all of the parts shortages right now and things being on back order, and depending on what I have in inventory as well, those are all considerations. But for example, you know, the Elna Silmic 2 caps, which I believe are going to be discontinued soon or have already been discontinued, but I do have some. They are held in high regard, as are the KL series low noise caps, you know, Nishikon fine gold caps, and everybody has an opinion about that. But anyways, I always use the best that I can. Sometimes, you know, I use the Fischer and Tausch, you know, German caps, all that. So anyways, and budget is always a consideration. But, oh, and also too, as far as the lamp housing is concerned, I did have that pulled off. I cleaned the connections within the lamp housing there. I touched up a few solder joints on the board here. I did a lot considering what I had to work with, because I always believe in trying to go that extra mile and do a little bit of that baker's dozen for the customer. So I'm going to flip it around back real quick and just touch on a few things and then get into some audio testing, because I do have a turntable hooked up to this so that we can kind of check out the phono preamp stage, and I have a CD player hooked up to the auxiliary inputs. You know, I'm going to show that the inputs are all working, in other words, and the tuner section and all that. So let me go ahead and move forward. And here we are on the bottom side, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this, doing that, and pointing out everything. But again, I went through and I cleaned up a lot of solder joints, and that's what took a lot of time, is the inspection process and going through and reflowing you know, solder joints and all that, because again, that's where a lot of the problems lie within these units. You'd be surprised. And I did recap this EQ board here, and also of course I had the tone board pulled out and did a very, very thorough multi-flush cleaning on the potentiometers, and worked them, like I always say, until my wrist was burning and I was crying uncle. Then that's just what you have to do. So I worked those pots and all the switches as well. You know, injected contact cleaner into them multiple times, into the switches as well, and just flushed them and worked them, and then reintroduced lubricant. So those are all looking good. And you know, reorganized the wiring a little bit in there, cleaned up the boards, with anhydrous alcohol and a brush, go through and just kind of clean excess flux off the boards. And the only other thing that I have to do before I package this up and ship it out to you is the jacks on the back. I'm going to clean those out. That's going to be the last thing I do before I package it up. So other than that, there might be something that I've missed, but regardless, though, you kind of get the point that I went through and did the most thorough job that I could based on the budget that I had to work within. So there you go. Oh, and I have your Bago parts here and all these caps and all that. I'm going to throw that in the box. It'll add a little bit of weight, but not too much, not too bad. But I want to send you your parts back as well. You can make a chain out of these caps and hang it around your neck, and maybe start a new career as a rapper or something like that. So there you go. So I'm going to spin this around and we'll get some music into this thing. In the video, of course, I can only play so much music. I'm just going to do little quick sections in there. So there you go. So let's go ahead and get to it. All right, we'll go ahead and start with the tuner. And we have our FM multiplex. You can see our stereo indicator. And it's blinking. You notice that? Of course you do. And the reason it's on the transmitter end of things, I pointed that out to the radio station owner because I know him. He's one of my customers. And he said he's going to look into it, but whatever. So that's all that is. I tested other receivers because when I first noticed that, I wanted to see, hey, what was going on? Is there a problem here? But that's the case with other receivers as well. So anyways, I'm just going to turn this up for a second. You come close to sending out, reconsider. Yeah, anyways, very nice sound. I didn't want to turn it up too loud because it would completely swamp out the mic on this camera and sound like absolute garbage. And otherwise, everything is working really, really good in that regard. The sound quality is great for what this is. And let me go ahead and cue up a CD that I have feeding into the auxiliary in. So let's do this real quick. I'm your blues man. That's what I am. Okay, and I'm sure YouTube will probably even catch that, so I'll probably get some sort of little slap on the hand just even for that. So let me go ahead and move on over to the phono stage. So let me drop the needle on the vinyl. Okay, so there you have it. So I just wanted to convey that everything is functioning, all the inputs, whatnot. In my opinion, as far as trying to communicate the fidelity, it's pretty pointless. And, number one, I don't have this area mic'd properly. I'm just relying on the mic within this camera. And then by the time, things are uploaded to YouTube or, transferred into a video form and all that, it's not real fantastic, but you get the point. And otherwise, that's really all I wanted to do. I'm going to get this thing packaged up, and as I always say, peace, love, music, and the vintage audio that brings it to your ears. Till next time.
This is a poor man's shoe production.